Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. So welcome to this year APSA Seed Technology webinar session 1 on seed priming. My name is Kuna, and I'm the Technical Coordination Manager of APSA. Let me just introduce you with the housekeeping rules for the webinar today. So participants are not allowed to open the microphone and camera. In case you are facing any technical issues, please put it in the chat box. And if you have any question to speakers, please put it in the Q&A box below. So remember, chat box for any technical issues and Q&A box for questions. Participants can also click like in the Q&A box. For question that you love that, you can click like, and the question that got most like will get the priority to be answered by the speakers. And as a new function for the Seed Technology webinar this year, after each presentation, we'll run a poll of a short question for all participants to participate in this poll. For example, here we'll run a question and you can select the answer that you wish. Once you click submit, in the end, we'll show you the answer of the poll, and the speaker will also help which one is the correct answer. So I hope you will listen to the webinar carefully, okay? So with that, let us proceed to the next step, which is the opening of the webinar. May I invite Dr. Tomoko Sakata. She is the member of APSA Standing Committee on Seed Technology to open the webinar. Dr. Tomoko has joined the Seed Technology Committee since 2021, and she has more than 25 years experience in seed enhancement in both vegetable and field crops, such as rice. She is currently the R&D manager for Asia Pacific at Incotec, part of Proda International. So with that, may I invite Dr. Tomoko? Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for a great introduction, Kuna. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tomoko Sakata, in Seed Technology Committee in APSA. Thank you for joining today's APSA webinar for seed priming. We are very pleased to see such many participants in this webinar, and I'd like to express my great thanks to the APSA Secretariat for their great support to organize such fantastic webinar. Seed Technology webinar is one of the most popular webinars in APSA currently, and this is already third year after starting this webinar series. Today's webinar is 7th webinar in seed technology area, and the number of participants has been increasing more and more in each time. Thank you very much for your great support on the activity of Seed Technology Committee. Today's topic is priming. This is one of the highest interest topics, which we got a lot of requests as a topic of this webinar series. Priming is well known as the technology for the germination speed improvement of germination uniformity, expanding the germination ability in wider temperature range, and improvement the dormancy. Farmer knows that seed germination speed is improved faster after soaking it in water. It might be the starting point of priming technology, and it is very beneficial as farmers practice. However, it is difficult to apply it in industry level. Therefore, advanced priming technologies have been developed to adapt it to the modern agriculture industry due to the increasing the germination challenging. Thus, priming technology has been contributing for a long time in global for farmers, seed companies, and nursery industry to get stable germination with good uniformity in various conditions, various crops, and varieties. And it is one of the essential technology in modern agriculture nowadays. I met priming technology over 30 years ago when I was a student. And after that, actually, I have been working for priming technology over 20 years. However, my interest and enthusiasm on priming technology has never been stopped, and it has been kept attracting me so long time. Priming is such magical technology. I assume you may feel that priming looks like such as magic in some case, as I also felt the same things in past in the beginning. However, to obtain such successful priming effect, a lot of technology are behind of it, and sufficient experience and knowledge are necessary to get a stable effect. Because each crop seed has different seed structure and different nature in germination. And each seed lot has different challenges because each seed lot has different quality due to the genetic reason and influenced by seed production condition. In Asia area, we have many challenges to get nice seed germination, such as suboptimal temperature, moisture stress, and dormancy. Therefore, priming has a lot of potential to contribute to the agriculture in Asia, definitely. However, priming is not so popular in Asia yet, and has not been used so commonly as of now, even though its benefit is very well known widely. It may be due to the cost or logistic management challenging, and maybe lack of knowledge. In addition, you may be concerning the shelf life of primed seed. Actually, there are some challenges in priming to use in industry level because to get full benefit of priming, all of quality factors need to be maintained very well and need to have good understanding among all of stakeholders, including farmers. Today, we invited a great speaker who are very knowledgeable and experienced in priming area. One of them is from academic area for sharing academic knowledges, and another one is from industry area for sharing more practical knowledge. I suppose that their presentation will give you a lot of idea. For example, its principle, what's benefit you can get by priming, what needs to be paid attention in priming development, process management, and primed seed handling. I hope today's webinar is beneficial for everyone to consider how to use priming technology on your seed effectively and safely. And I hope today's webinar is enjoyable for everyone, and I hope you are attracted by priming technology, as same with me, in the end of this webinar. Then let me introduce today's great moderator of this webinar from our Seed Technology Committee, Professor Dr. Umarani Senior. She is the president of the National Seed Association Malaysia and a professor at the Department of Crop Science, University Putra, Malaysia. Her expertise is in the area of seed science and technology, combining physiology, biochemistry, and storage, both conventional and via cryopreservation. She has also served as the Deputy Director at the University Community Transformation Center, and this assignment resolved around ensuring knowledge transfer of university technology and know-how to industry and the community. Dr. Uma's contribution in the form of research output are very significant. She has published more than 100 articles in renowned citation index journal, while others are non-citation index journals. Now, I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Uma for starting this webinar. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Tomoko-san. That was a very nice introduction to the webinar. And also thank you for the nice introduction on myself. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning, good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to this first webinar for the year 2023, organized by the Seed Technology Committee under the Standing Committee of Seed Technology under APSA. I think Dr. Tomoko gave a very good introduction where she mentioned she started working on priming 30 years ago, and she hasn't stopped, basically. She's still working on priming. This simply tells us that there is a lot for us to learn on this topic. I am not going to delay this session any further. So without further ado, let me call upon the first speaker for today, who is Dr. Irfan Afzal. Now, please allow me to introduce him. Dr. Irfan has been working as faculty member and researcher in the field of seed science at the University of Agriculture, Faisalabad, Pakistan. And he's been working for 22 years. So his talk will focus a lot on the science, while the second speaker will talk to us on the application predominantly. Dr. Irfan is also the focal person of Seed Science and Technology program at his university. Now, his priority research areas are basic and strategic research on seed quality, maintenance, and enhancement. His rigorous postdoctoral training at leading institutes such as the SBC, right? UC Davis, USA, Australian Centre for Plant Functional Genomics, Adelaide, and CSIRO Canberra prepared him to be a competent researcher. He has developed magnetic seed stimulation, priming, coating, and pelleting technology, and even has a patent on climate smart storage technology. Now, he has been serving as the editor of Seed Science and Technology Journal. He's been a member of ISTA Technical Committee on Seed Storage and is also the regional representative of International Society of Seed Science, all since 2019. Now, ladies and gentlemen, based on his expertise on seed technology, he has been providing consultancy services both at the national and international organizations. Now, with all those credits, I'm very sure Dr. Irfan has some interesting information to share with all of us today. With that note, Dr. Irfan, the floor is yours and you have 30 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I'm thankful to Dr. Umar for such a nice introduction to the participants. And secondly, I'm thankful to APSA for giving me this opportunity to talk with the seed industry people in the globe. So today I'm going to talk about this modern seed priming, and the seed priming is an empirical seed enhancement technology that improves seed quality since ancient to modern times. So high seed quality is the foundation of agriculture, and viable seed with vigorous seedling that contribute to rapid and uniform seedling establishment in the field, and ultimately give high yield due to synchronized harvest, better management, and less input costs. So low bigger seeds definitely disappointed to the farmers once it is sown in the field. So high quality seed all always contribute nearly to 30% to the total production. But this seed quality is influenced by many factors during seed development, during production, during processing, and the storage. Now, availability, quality, and cost of seed is very important for smallholder farmers in developing countries, because more than 500 million these smallholder farmers are contributing to the 1/3 of the food which is produced in the globe. But the difference in time between sowing and stand establishment is very crucial time. So during the time, so if the seed is high vigor, that contribute, but if the seed is low vigor, that ultimately disappointed to the farmer. Now, there are some solutions. Land is squeezing and we need to produce more food. For that, we have to focus on to control the stagnant yield in our crops. So we need to increase our crop yield. Then 1/3 food losses are being faced by us, and we have to reduce these losses. There are chances and definitely genetic improvement through traditional breeding and genetic engineering is important. But sometimes we need some shotgun approaches. By these approaches, we can focus and we can improve this seed priming treatment that can improve low vigor seeds by using this seed technology protocols. Okay, priming, it's a control hydration process that allows all pre-germinating processes, but prevents radical protein, and ultimately that improves the quality of the seeds. So if you look into this priming treatment that is helpful in structural and genetic repair, that reduce imbibational damage. It activates enzymes, then help in breakdown of food reserve into simplest form, so that can be available during germination process. But what are the benefits of priming? Early and rapid germination, it increases temperature range for germination, and it overcomes this dormancy, and ultimately it is helpful in establishment of uniform and healthy crop stand, and that all these factors contribute to increase crop economic yield. So with priming, it is reported that the prime seeds perform better, not in the normal condition, but it also helpful in stressful environment like drought, like low or high temperature, or the salinity stress. So ambient conditions, what kind of the priming agent are you going to use? Availability of oxygen during priming conditions, then the duration of the treatment, and finally, the drying process, that all influence the primings. So this is important to know. This water uptake during germination is characterized by 3 phases. During phase 1, rapid influx of water into the seed tissues that increases water content, and these levels are maintained during phase 2 as metabolic processes are reactivated. This is followed in phase 3 by water uptake as embryo tissues grow and expand, leading to their protrusion from the seed coat and germination. So during priming, so we see that the lag phase is shortened, and ultimately, if the seed took 4 days to germinate, but this prime seed took almost half day, 2 days to germinate, because the metabolic activities are already activated. So this period, this lag phase is totally dependent on 2 factors. Number 1 is the temperature, number 2 is the moisture. So if you sow the seed in low temperature and moisture, ultimately it takes more days to germinate. as compared to the high temperature and the moisture content. So the other thing is the chitting period that is very important. And on the right side, you see for cereals, vegetables, and tree species, this chitting period is different. If you look into the history, it's not a new technique, but it started in ancient Greek times. They used seed treatment to the low vigor seeds. Then the Greek philosophers used in cucumber, and then Charles Darwin used in lettuce and cress seeds by using the seawater. And all these priming techniques being done in the past. But later on, the first paper, classical paper, which is published by Hedeker in 1973, he introduced polyethylene glycol, which is safe to use because it does not go inside the seed and not damage as some other salts can adversely affect the germination processes. Then the Bradford talk about this water relations, and the Taylor in 1998 introduced these seed enhancement techniques. Up to now, more than 3,000 papers have been published on priming, and roughly more than 300 papers per year are being published on this by the researchers. And it means this treatment has some value in academia as well as the industry. And there are some publications on it. And now, if we talk about different types of priming, the classical priming, the first one is the hydropriming, in which we just use the water. The second one is the osmopriming, in which we can use PEG and some other salts. Then solid matrix priming, we use matrix carrier. Then hormonal priming, addition of different hormones like gibberellin, like cytokinin, some salicylic acid, and some other promoting hormones which can help in germination. But if we look into the modern treatments, in the modern treatments, the first one is the nanopriming, in which we use some active nanopriming agents, and that help in improving germination, because these nanoparticles go inside the seed or sometime on the surface and help to protect the seed from pathogens, and ultimately it influences the germination and breaking dormancy. Then sometimes we expose the seed to magnetic field, and ultimately it improves the germination. And then the biopriming is another technique in which plant growth promoting rhizobacteria are used, and which are helpful in addition to the priming to boost up the germination process in the seeds. In nutrient priming, different micronutrients are applied to the seed during priming solution, and that improve the germination. And then some other treatments are being used in developed countries. Sound priming, ionization, and the smoke priming is also being used. Okay, these are some results of promising results of the priming by using calcium chloride, which is good one for high value crops, and then some other treatment like hydropriming. In case of magnetic seed stimulation, we expose the sunflower seed to 100 millitesla for 10 minutes along with the moringa leaf extracts. So that help in improving early vigor, growth and development, and the final yield of sunflower. Now, the most important function, apart from the improvement of germination, this priming is very helpful against abiotic stresses like temperature, like water, and salinity stress. A lot of research has been done, and it is proven that prime seeds perform better against these abiotic stresses. We conducted one trial on wheat exposed to high salinity and found that priming with carnitine and salicylic acid that improved germination, seedling growth, and ultimately the yield under saline conditions. Then we utilize some these plant growth promoting substances like ascorbic acid, salicylic acid. So that also improve the crop performance and ultimately give higher yield at early spring season. At that time, the temperature is low. Okay, these are some seed priming agents which are mainly involved in breaking dormancy. And these priming agents are very helpful in high value crops like lettuce, like celery, in which dormancy can easily be broken down by these chemicals rather than using breeding technology. Similarly, for germination enhancement, different chemicals are used, and above these, the water, and then in water, these salts, inorganic minerals, ions, or plant growth promoting bacteria can be added that are helpful in improving germination and seedling establishment in the field. Now, this seed priming method and materials, equipments are highly important if someone is interested in doing the priming technology. So at lab scale, a wide range of priming agents are being optimized by the researchers, and they use simple techniques. But in industrial, the seed industry is more conscious about sophistication from semi-auto to automatic machines, which are helpful and they are easy to go, and that can improve the germination. And at farmer always look into the low-cost solutions, which can easily be practiced in the field, and that has promising results in the crops in which the germination is the major issue. No, in lab, these priming equipment, simple priming equipments are used. Either we can use the petri dish or the glass beaker, in which we first of all we optimize the priming agent, and then we conducted some experiments, and after that we conduct germination test, and later on we finalize, evaluate the germination. If the germination is improved by exposing to different levels of that priming agents, so ultimately that is proceeded further in the net house and then in the field conditions. Now, the mechanized priming, we use ultrasonic seed priming equipment. It's kind of semi-auto, and in which aeration is provided, and then the seed is dried after priming treatment, and then the seed is evaluated by following ISTA protocols. So at industrial level, different kind of the machines, equipments are used. These machines are not sophisticated as in case of the seed coating technology. So these machines may be comprised of the single column priming unit, and maybe comprises of 3 to 5 multi-column seed priming units, or the 2 priming column units can be used. So the idea is simple. The seed is soaked in aerated solution, maybe water, or maybe the combination of salts, inorganic ions, hormones, or plant growth promoting bacteria. So after priming treatment, the seed is re-dried back to original moisture content, so that seed can be safe before sowing in the field. Now, another company, they have introduced multi-drum priming unit, and these drum has huge capacity, maybe more than 40 liters capacity, and the drums vary from 3 to 16. And after this priming, this seed is dried in separate drying unit. And keep in mind, once priming is done, so seed should be dried near to the original weight. Otherwise, with high moisture content, the viability of prime seed will be compromised. No, at farmer level, the farmer wants the simple solutions. In that, they use the drum priming, and normally use the on-form priming, and they soak the seed in the drum, which is rotating, and it's 8 or 12 hours priming duration, and then followed by a surface drying, and then seed is ready to sow in the field. So farmer always look into the simple solutions. It is important. The chitting period should be monitored. If the radical comes out from the seed coat, so then that stage is the point of no return, and it's highly desiccation sensitive. And as a result, the seed emergence in the field will be adversely affected. Now, the biggest challenge for priming is the longevity. Prime seed has less shelf life as compared to the non-prime seeds. So this is a big challenge for the industry. But for that, if the prime seed is stored at low relative humidity and inorganic condition in aerobic conditions, so that can extend the longevity of the prime seeds. So mean relative humidity of storage environment should be less, and there should be less oxygen availability that can ensure the long shelf life of the prime seeds. So we conducted one trial on exposing quinoa to high RH and high temperature while having high moisture contents. So we observed that this prime, the longevity of the prime seeds sustained for shorter period of time under low RH conditions, but it accelerated at high RH and temperature conditions. So we observed that the number of abnormal seedling was increased after 3 and 4 months even under low RH aging conditions. So the shelf life of the prime seed is less, but we should try to sow it in the field as soon as possible. Otherwise, the quality is compromised. If we look into the global scenario of seed companies who are working on priming and other techniques, so I have observed, and it's almost 35 companies who are working in the world, but prominently these companies are more in US, Europe, and Australia, but limited in developing countries like Pakistan. And these are main companies who are involved directly or indirectly in promoting seed priming technology to the seed industry. So these companies are providing semi or fully auto machines to the companies. And there is one recent example I have seen, Nelson Seed Development in collaboration with Seed Processing Holland. They develop a fully automatic seed priming machine for various crop species. So which is a good addition to the industry to promote this technology for farming communities. So if we look into the global scenario of this seed market size, it is being grown from 6.1 billion in 2022 to 9.2 billion by 2027. So this is a big market for the industry to work on this technology, because this technology is being practiced and it is disclosed by the researchers, and the industry can promote such technology in those countries where this technology is still new. Now, the challenges regarding this priming, the choice of priming method and material is very important, because this method and material varied among different species, and the optimization is very important. Once the researcher has a protocol and promising results, then there is no harm to use this technology at large scale. Then the utilization of low cost and effective priming agents is very important, because by using such technology, if the cost is increased, then definitely the end user, the farmers, will be reluctant to use this technology. In developing countries, the scenario is different, because the people, the farmers mostly focus on high yielding rather than using such sophisticated technology. While in developed countries, these technologies are being utilized to high value crops to break dormancy and improve the germination. So the long-term impact of priming on crop plants is under field conditions. I have seen many publications which are focused on improving germination under lab conditions. But this technology is not, very limited publication are found which are based on the performance of the prime seed under field conditions. So we should move from lab to the field for effective utilization of this priming technology. Then the combining various priming agents, which is very important. The combination of plant growth promoting bacteria with the hormone, with the micronutrients to tackle this challenge of climate change, because sometimes we face low temperature at the time of sowing. This priming will get benefit. Similarly, under drought condition, under salinity stress, the combination is more promising as compared to using individual priming agents. So finally, this scaling up of priming technology is very important at farmer and industrial level. So as already Dr. Skata told that she was working on priming for 30 years, but still she is working on priming. I've been working on priming for the last 22 years, but still I'm working on it because it is effective, and I seen that more than 300 papers are being published every year on priming. So that means this priming is pragmatic, more promising technology that helps to the farmers by improving germination, seedling vigor, better growth and development, and finally higher yield. So finally, this efficient seed germination and early seedlings establishment these are important for commercial agriculture, and seed priming is now used to improve or protect seedling establishment and growth under changing environments and seedbed constraints, which are normal under field conditions. Then the affordable seed enhancement techniques need to be scaled up at farmer and industrial level. So finally, this high quality seed is critical for farmers' prosperity and food security. So to conclude my talk, I will say that this priming should be promoted in those countries where still it is new, and scaling of this technology will help to the farmers, and these small solutions will definitely contribute to high yield in which the crop production is compromised. So with this, I'm thank you all the audience for listening carefully, and I will be happy to take the answers, the questions from the audience. And
Right.
Omar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
over to
much.
you.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Irfan, for that very, very interesting background information, the science behind seed priming, what do we do, and so on. I think you came up with some critical points for the audience to take note. Now, all of us hope that the audience actually listened very carefully to your talk. And in order to find out whether they actually did, we are going to run a small poll with 2 questions. right? It's like a quiz. Can I ask Kuna's help to run the quiz, please?
Sure, I'm running the poll now. All right, so you see two questions. Just very easy question from Dr. Irfan. So please help clicking the question, the answer, and submit your poll. So answers are coming right now. Professor Uma, let's just wait for 20 seconds to get more replies from the participants.
Sure.
Right, so let us wait a bit. I think as of now, just to give you a hint, we have all answers of all three options. So let us give 10 seconds to go. And after that, we will close the poll. All right, everyone. So we are going to close the poll in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I'm closing the poll. And let me share with you the result, Dr. Uma.
Okay, we have the results. And perhaps I would like to call upon Dr. Irfan to say something. You seem to have all three answers, so perhaps you want to reiterate on the answers and give some explanation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Umar. The first question is, which is the cost-effective primary treatment? So I told you people that the most cost-effective treatment is hydroponic, because it's not using any chemical, any microbes, and it is low-cost treatment. So with simple water, you can improve the germination. So 64% people, the participants replied, which is majority of the people. I think they are not sleeping. They are very attentive. And the second question is, which one is the most commonly used priming osmotica? While giving the history about the seed priming, I told you that the people are using different chemicals, but then Hedeker, the first time, he introduced this PG, polyethylene glycol, which is a larger molecule, bigger molecule, and that did not go inside the seed, while the other chemical like calcium or other salts, they may go inside the seed if they are used in excess. So polyethylene glycol is the most commonly used priming agents, and the industry never disclosed what kind of the priming agents they were using, but PEG is the most suitable. And again, the audience is very attentive. The most 42% the participants gave the right answer. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. I think, yeah, you are right. Everybody has been listening, which is very good. I'm hoping for lots of questions on this. We already have about 8 or 9 questions. So Dr. Irfan, the first question, do you have any priming procedure to overcome dormancy in bitter gourd and ridge gourd? I kind of expected this question. Bitter gourd and ridge gourd. Any suggestions for priming agents?
Okay, it's very interesting question, and definitely I expect that the industry people have more experience, wide application of this seed technology. So I did not use priming protocol for this bitter gourd or red gourd, because I'm working in agronomy, and mostly my work is focused on field crops and very few on horticulture crops. But I can tell you the one thing which is very important, the success regarding priming. So you just dip the seed, or you just dip the seed in beaker or in a petri dish, having mastered filter paper, and wait for the radical emergence. For example, if you keep this bitter gourd in the solution or in the petri dish, and the radical comes out after 24 hours, you stop your priming before 20 hours, before 4 hours. I think you should go for 20 hours priming, then redry it to the original weight. And then you use this for germination test, and definitely you will get promising result. Priming play a very important role in those crop seeds which face germination problem, which face dormancy. So this is the simple way how you can break dormancy in vegetable crops. Thank you.
Okay, I think that gives some background on how people should approach the issue, right? The second question, I think one that is quite similar, but asking on oil palm seeds, right? Is it something that you want to pick up on, oil palm seeds? I think it's a niche crop, but if you have some experience.
So this one, Uma, question.
A similar question as to any priming agent to break dormancy of oil palm seeds.
Yeah, again, I did not use because the palm seed took much time for germination. So again, the chitting period is important. If you know the chitting period, then you can do this priming technique and it will work. Yes.
Right. Just for the benefit of the audience, oil palm dormancy is very often broken using heat treatment, right? That's
Yes,
what works best for oil palm. Yeah, let's see. After priming, what is the recommended seed moisture to maintain vigor?
Okay, it's very interesting question. This drying is very important after priming. That's why I focused more on this, the drying. Okay, for example, I can talk about the wheat. Wheat has a 10 to 12% moisture contents when we store it. And again, remember, when we put into the field, it will not germinate unless it has 40 to 50% moisture. I showed you the 3 phases of water uptake. The first phase, rapid uptake, then the metabolic activity, then the radical return. So you should redry to original moisture contents. If you are putting the seed of 10% into the priming solution, again, that took 40% moisture, and then you have to redry it to 10%. So this safe moisture limit varies. For cereals, it is 12%. In case of oil seeds, it's 9%. And if we talk about the pulses, it's around about 10%, because this is that safe moisture limit in which seeds can be stored.
Okay, thank you. I think one more question, but I'm going to skip this. This is again a priming agent for papaya and what agents to be used, right? So I guess you have answered that based on the first 2 questions, which are specific to a particular crop. So let's just move on. I think there are a lot of people who are interested in the challenge that you mentioned on storage. We all know that prime seeds do not store as well. But the curiosity here is, how short is that duration? So this person is asking if originally it can store for 3 years. After priming, what are you looking at?
Yeah, if we do seed priming, that should be the seed life after priming. We can say what is the effect of priming in seed store life, right?
I think I'm looking at a different question. We're talking about if you prime for 3 years. Sorry, if you prime and it's what happens? Yeah.
Okay. We can store prime seeds, but you need to be very conscious. For example, you have to provide low RH conditions, you have to provide low temperature, then you have to provide anaerobic conditions, less oxygen availability to the prime seeds. You need extra care to the prime seeds. And it is difficult for the seed industry, for example, in developing countries, because they have no proper storage facilities at the farmhouse, then to the seed companies, and then to the dealer shops. And normally the people, what they do, if they want to sow the seed, they prime at that time. But sometimes it happens, it is a challenge for the industry if they market the prime seeds. So they should be ready that the prime seeds life will be less as compared to the other seeds. So they try to sell it, the prime seeds first, and then the non-prime seeds later on. Otherwise, the solution is to prime it at the time of sowing, or maybe you can take 1 week, maybe you can take 1 month. And normally in developing countries, again, the people are more in this webinar. So they prefer seasonal storage. They always avoid the storage. They try to import the seed, which can easily be sold out. They try to avoid the storage environment. But for that, it is important that you can keep the seed for longer period of time by keeping prime seed to low RH conditions, low temperature, and less oxygen availability, which is proven by the researchers in the past.
Right, thank you. Yeah, there's another question here about the mechanism. We know that priming actually improves germination and vigor, but could you explain on the mechanism that allows this to happen?
Okay, I showed one slide in which it is clearly mentioned that priming improved genetic and structural repair. Priming reduced imbibational damage. So if you expose dry seed to the water, to the priming solution, this seed takes water very rapidly. And ultimately the membrane will affect. If membrane will affect, the essential metabolites will leach down from the seed. So we are doing simple electrical conductivity test. We use the electrical conductivity. If the low vigor seeds, the membranes will be damaged. What we do in priming, we add some osmotica like polyethylene glycol, like calcium chloride. It reduces the water potential, and it reduces the uptake of water, and ultimately the uptake of water will take place very slowly, not rapidly. And it happened when we sow corn or beans or soybeans at low temperature, because at that time the dry seed took rapidly cold water from the soil, and ultimately the membrane effect. The priming, what the priming is doing, the priming repair structural and genetic repair, and it reduces imbibational damage. And similarly, it helps in all metabolic activities, which I mentioned in the slide. So ultimately, if one person is going to the gym, he has the muscles, developed muscles, while the other person is weak, and they are exposed to the stress in the field. Ultimately, the vigorous seed will get benefit. And I can tell you the most important function of the priming is that if we prime the seed, all seeds germinate uniformly on the same day, as compared to the non-uniform germination, which happen in open pollinated, not in hybrid seeds. So this is a good benefit of the priming. All seeds germinate equally in the same day, and then it helps in all operations, and harvesting is in time, and it will give the better yield. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think you used a very practical analogy to explain that going to gym. I think people will remember that well. Yeah. Dr. Irfan, there's 2 more questions, I think. One is on the papaya seed, right? Now, I want to ask this differently rather than asking you what priming agent to
Mhm.
use.
Mhm.
Now, as we know, papaya seeds are intermediate seeds, right? Is there any differences from your research and so on between orthodox versus intermediate seeds in their response to priming and so on?
Well, this is very interesting question. And most of my work is focused on the orthodox seeds. All right. And I never work on intermediate or recalcitrant seeds because they are already in hurry, not the orthodox seeds. You know, the orthodox seeds face problem during production, seed development, harvesting, and then the storage. So if something is happening, maybe during seed development, maybe at the time of harvesting, or maybe it's happening during the storage. The orthodox seed has more challenges as compared to the intermediate and recalcitrant. In case of intermediate or recalcitrant, we focus on this seed storage behavior, not improving this germination or the other things.
Right.
So
Scope for future research.
yeah, this is good.
Yeah. Anything that you can share on papaya seeds?
No, just I love to eat papaya.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
At least we
yeah.
have an answer to that question. Now,
Yeah.
one last question due to time. A
Yeah.
scope of priming in Asia in the next 3 years. I think even Dr. Tomoko mentioned adaptation of the technology in Asia is not so great. So what is the scope of this technology in Asia?
This technology in Asia. Yeah. So again, I focus more on that. This technology should be introduced in Asia. The problem is that we never use on this technology because we already focus on high yield. We always focus on good quality seed. In developing countries, for example, in Pakistan, there's 36% certified seed is available. Similar is the case with other countries. They more focus on provision of high quality seeds. But we should communicate this knowledge to the seed industry rather than working on this because the seed industry people always go to attend APSA meetings. They are primarily focused to do a business having bigger seeds in vegetables or other crops. So they should also focus on to introduce this technology in Asian countries because in Asian countries, it has a huge margin. I'm in academia. If I'm in the industry, honestly speaking, I will start a company on seed technology, seed coating, seed priming, and then the storage. So this is very important. And I still believe that I have more 14 years of career. And when I retired, during these 14 years, I will keep on talking about seed enhancement and the seed storage. It has a huge potential in Asian countries. What they have to do, they have to follow the model in US, in Australia, in Europe. So they have introduced such technology and they should follow. And same technology can be introduced in Asian countries. But the only issue is the copyrights. If one machine is coming, then they are not going to buy the second one. They will replicate it, and that's the issue. So if they have a copyrights, and definitely these technology should be introduced because it has a huge potential. So I believe after this talk, some companies will start up in Asia.
Right. Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
think there are many people listening. Let's hope some positive things come out of your suggestions. Well, there are a few more questions, but time doesn't permit. And for those who have asked the question, don't worry, Dr. Irfan will answer them and we will reply to you through email. Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Irfan. Right. We will move on to the next speaker. Right.
Thank you, Dr. Uma. Thank you.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite the second speaker for today, who is Dr. Henry Bruggink. He is currently the Senior Research Technology Specialist from Incotec Europe. He is also a member of the Advanced Technologies Committee under ISTA, the International Seed Testing Association. He studied biology from the University of Groningen. This was way back in late 1970s. He was a researcher thereafter at the Government Seed Research Station from 1986 to 89, where he helped in the development of vigor test method. I think all of us know that vigor test methods are very important. He then followed up his career as seed technologist at Bruinsma Seeds from 1990 to 1996. And thereafter, he has been with Incotec on multiple projects. Right? He's been working on priming, upgrading, image analysis, shelf life, quality testing, name it, right? There's so many things that he has done. Now, in addition, he has been actively involved in assisting and also conducting, giving courses, workshops with organizations such as Breedwise, International Seed Academy, Wageningen Seed Center, ISTA Advanced Technology Committee. He has also developed and given internal courses on seed biology and on seed breeding and on seed production. Right? He's been invited to many invited speakers by companies as well as organizations such as ISTA and so on. I am sure, ladies and gentlemen, that with his vast experience with all those different organizations and his long attachment with Incotec will provide us with some practical use of the priming technology. Right? With that, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Henry. And you have 30 minutes, sir.
Well, thank you, Omarani, for this very nice introduction. And of course, also thanks to the APSA for inviting me to give a lecture on priming. I will open the presentation now. Okay, something is not in order.
We can see you. Perhaps you just need to share your slides.
I'm trying to do that.
Okay.
Ah, there it is. So, can you see my slides?
Yes, all good.
Good, then I will start. Well, my talk is about seed priming, the practical purpose or commercial use. And so I will be talking not about the principles of seed priming, but about how you can develop protocols and for exactly what reason. So I will start my presentation with an overview of the different technologies you can apply to seeds. And then with the focus on priming, what is priming and why do we apply priming? and how do you develop a new protocol, and how do you maintain it. And in the end, I will also go into some of the global trends. So we distinguish 7 seed processing technologies, of which we have the seed hygiene, meaning that we clean seeds from bacterial or fungal agents. We can do upgrading, meaning taking out part of the seeds to get a better total seed lot. And we can apply a film coat, an encrustment, or a pellet to facilitate sowing, but also to apply all kinds of compounds. And that is a special technology application of actives, biologicals, and nutrients. And finally, we have the analytical surfaces in which we can test seeds for the presence and the amount of actives that have been applied, but we can also do hybridity testing or other genotype testing. But this talk is about priming. And priming is the physiological stimulation of germination by controlled hydration. Well, you already heard about it from Dr. Irfan. This is a bit of a repetition, but principally the main focus of priming is to get a faster and a more uniform germination. And that means that we want to synchronize germination. And here we have the figure that you've already seen. An original seed lot germinates over a long period of time, whereas primed seed germinates in a short period of time. And in a picture here, you see the seeds of pepper or paprika. On the left, the unprimed, and on the right, the primed seeds. And you can clearly see the huge difference after priming. But priming does more. It can also improve germination under suboptimal conditions. That means that if there is salt in the substrate, or you have a low or high temperature, if there is drought, then primed seeds will generally perform better. And if you have priming, or if you prime seeds, you can relieve them during that priming period from primary dormancy, or you can prevent the occurrence of secondary dormancy. And of course, you need to do that if you want to have a uniform germination. And finally, that's a nice side effect. If you have primed seeds, the seedlings that grow out of it are usually less sensitive for stressful conditions. Priming does more. If you perform a seed hygiene treatment, so you're trying to get rid of a certain bacterial or fungi disease, then that can have a negative impact on your seed quality. So when you combine it with priming, either before or after the seed hygiene treatment, you can protect or repair the seed from these negative effects, and you will still have a good germination. And priming can also have an effect on improved seedling or even plant performance. And that can mean that in the, for instance, the priming of spinach seeds, we can already affect the fertilization, so the moment of flowering of the big plants. And of course, during priming, you can add all kinds of compounds or microorganisms, and usually they don't really affect the germination itself, but they have an effect on the performance of your seedling or the big plant. So, well, I think the main reason for priming is to get a faster and more synchronous germination. That can mean that you have an increased germination, but it will at least mean that you have more good seedlings and more usable transplants. Here you see an example of celery. On the left side, unprimed seed, and on the right side, primed seed. And in addition, a better germination under suboptimal conditions. And finally, priming can also be used to improve deteriorated quality. So if there is a seed lot and it does not perform as it should, then priming can help restore the germination of that seed lot. Usually the quality of those seed lots is not that good, so that also affects the shelf life. So after priming, the seed has to be sown rather quickly to make sure that you don't end up with a very deteriorated seed lot. Well, for which crops? Well, Dr. Irfan already mentioned, he's working mainly in agronomics, but priming principally is especially done on vegetable seeds. And if you look at the different areas in the world, you see that in Europe, lettuce, rootstock tomato, other solanaceous species, spinach, celery, fennel, carrot, onion, endive, chicory, they are all vegetable seeds. The only exception is sugar beet. Sugar beet contains germination inhibitors in the fruit wall, so it has to be rinsed thoroughly before you can plant it, and usually it's then also pelleted. So that's principally one of the very few species of agronomic species that is being primed and pelleted. In the USA, we have quite similar crops as in Europe, and also in South America, you see that there is only a limited number of crops. Only carrot, lettuce, tobacco, and endive. Other crops are hardly pelleted there or primed. In Asia, priming is not that popular, but some crops are being primed, especially for the cucurbit species. There is an interest, and furthermore, tomato, eggplant, pepper, and lettuce. And then Japan. Japan falls under Asia, but you see that Japan is more to like the Western European countries. So they prime all kinds of vegetable seeds there, from lettuce to watermelon. And finally, Australia, a big country, but only lettuce and celery are being primed there. Well, one thing that you can see is that it's mainly vegetables, and lettuce is virtually primed everywhere. And that is because lettuce has a problem with high temperatures. So if the temperatures increase, lettuce germinates less. And with priming, you can improve the high temperature tolerance of the seed. So now I will talk a little bit about how do you develop a priming protocol for a new species. At Incotec, we have priming protocols for approximately 50 species, and most of them are vegetables. We prime also a few grass species, and for the rest, it are flowers. Agronomic species are not primed. And for each species, we developed one or more protocols. So not just one, but many more. In total, we have about 170 protocols for priming seeds. And if you want to develop a protocol for the new species, you have to know the species. And what I usually do is I look at the handbook of seed technology for gene banks. There is a compendium of specific germination information and test recommendations. So in this handbook, you can see for many species at least, for many genus, what are the characteristics? Is there dormancy or not? If there is dormancy, how can you solve it? So for starting a priming protocol, you need to know to which family does the species belong. So then you can find your background information. Then you need to know how is the seed built. Is it only an embryo, or is it embryo with a lot of endosperm? Is the seed coat thick or is it thin? Does it form mucus when it becomes wet? All those things are important. And you need to know where does the species naturally occur, because that can give you information if there might be any dormancy. And if there is dormancy, you also need to figure out which type it is. Then you need to know what are principally the temperature requirements of that species. What is the optimal temperature, minimum and maximum? And you need to know how long does it take for all seeds to germinate. when there is no dormancy present. If you plant the seeds and the first seeds germinate after 3 days and the last seeds after 10 days, and you want to synchronize the seeds, then you need to prime for at least 10 days to get the last seeds at the same level as the first seeds. And finally, you need to know how will the priming effect be tested. Do you look for germination? Do you look for usable transplants? Will it be tested in soil, in rock wool? All those aspects are important. And of course, when you get a question from a customer, the customer is the person who can tell you best how they will test it. So then you have gathered all this basic information, and then you can design your recipes. In case of dormancy, you need to figure out how you can remove it. Is it something with a hard seed coat? Then you can try it at a high temperature. But is it a question of hormonal balance? Then you need to apply certain hormones during the priming. And then research can start. And research principally is a question of trial and error. You test all kinds of recipes with all kinds of variations. And you can look at the technology, at the temperature, duration, moisture. So that is quite a lot of work. But once you have found an effective recipe, you need to fine-tune it. Is the duration optimal? Is the temperature optimal? The moisture, can I change it? And the more moisture, the faster the priming will be, but you run a risk of germination during the priming, and that's something you don't want. So you need to fine-tune it. And once you have done that, you can test it on more seed lots, on more cultivars, and different qualities of that same species. And if possible, you also start testing shelf life, because it has been discussed in the previous talk, shelf life is important. So after priming, you dry the seeds and you store it under optimal conditions. Here in the Netherlands, we store all the seeds at 30% relative humidity at 15 degrees. That are optimal conditions or near optimal conditions to store primed seeds for a long period of time. And our aim is always to have a shelf life of at least 18 months. So the seeds can be kept until the next sowing season. And when you find that you have a continuous good performance, then the priming protocol will be transferred to production. And in production, of course, there are many more seed lots will be primed, and you get a much better idea of how is the germination improved, and after a while, what is the shelf life of your primed seeds. So now I will give you an example, and this was quite a tough priming. So it took us quite some time to realize this. This is about rootstock tomato. Rootstock tomato is not one species, but it is an interspecific hybrid between a tomato, which is usually the mother plant, and one of several wild solanum species, which are the father. And it is used for grafting of tomato. So the rootstock forms the lower part and the root system, and the upper part is formed by the tomato, and that gives you the fruits. The rootstock gives you two things. First, it has a very vigorous growth. So you will have a very strong plant with a high yield, but also it has resistance against soil pathogens. So you have less problems with that. So in the end, you will have a very strong plant and a higher yield. And that is the important aspect, a high yield. But rootstock has a serious problem, and that is that the germination is very slow and uneven, and sometimes also a very low germination. And then a little bit about the history, because for a long time grafting was only done for cultivation in soil. So that was the organic cultivation, and only one cultivar was used, and that had a reasonably low level of dormancy. However, in the 90s, people found out that when you grow tomatoes on rock wool, a grafted tomato plant will give you a higher yield. And that meant that the interest in rootstocks increased. So all the seed companies started breeding in rootstocks. There are even companies that breed only in rootstock. But with the breeding, a lot of new material came in, and also a lot of dormancy was introduced. And in 2002, we were approached by a seed company that claimed they had cultivars with a very good genetics, but they could not get the seeds into practice because there was hardly any germination. So we started research, and it took us 30 experiments over a period of 1 year before we could develop a first protocol. And testing the protocol, improving the protocol, it took us 100 experiments, so another period of 2.5 years before we could say, okay, now we have a commercial priming. When you look at the results, then you see the light blue bar is the control, and it only shows your first germination after 5 days of 20%. The priming, which consists of an A, which is the mildest variant, a B and a C, which is the strongest variant, you see that after 2 days, primings B and C already gives you maximum result. So everybody happy, we had a new priming, and it took us only 3.5 years. And here you see, of course, the information in the picture. On the top, you see the unprimed seed, and below the primed seed. But there was a problem. We had to continue the research because certain cultivars did not respond very well to the priming. So we had to increase the priming effect even more. And it took us another 80 experiments or 2 years to get this improved priming transferred. And here you see the difference. Where in the old priming, after 2 days, we had nearly 100% germination. For the cultivar that we have here, it ends up with about 70%. And you also see that the raw seed germinates much slower than in the previous image. But with the experimental priming, we had a similar result after 2 days of priming. So this is a video of the germination, I hope. And you must imagine that for grafting, you need a very uniform crop, both of the tomato and of the rootstock. And that is why priming is so important. And to see the effect in practice, you see here rock wool trays. On the left, the original seed lot with only a few plants which are relatively small. And on the right hand, you see the seed that was primed by Incotec. Large plants, all uniformly germinated. So then you have a priming protocol, but that does not mean that it never changes. It is not chiseled in stone. There are all kinds of changes, developments that can lead to the development of new protocols. And I will mention a few. You can have a change in the genetics. When we started priming lettuce, we had quite a strong priming, but the dormancy in the crop became less, so we had to develop milder primings to answer to that. You have the genetics variation. That's what you've seen with the rootstock. Some respond very well to the milder priming. For others, you need a stronger priming. If you have a lower seed quality, it may also mean that you need a milder priming, because when we prime, we also take into account the seed life, the shelf life of the prime seed. Then the methodology. If you use a compound in priming that is not organic, it is not an organic priming. But lately there is more requests for organic priming, so we need to develop the methodology. And also the priming techniques. Principally, we go out from the three basic techniques: osmo priming, drum priming, and solid matrix priming. And when you do osmo priming, it is meant for relatively small quantities. If you have to prime much more seed, you want to skip to drum priming or matrix priming. And finally, the usage of the primed product. Do you grow the plants to become a mature plant and then harvest it? Then you need much less seed than when you harvest the seedlings already after 2 or 3 weeks. And when you need much more seeds, that also means that you're not willing to pay as much as for the normal priming. So you need to develop a priming for larger quantities at a lower cost price. And finally, from research, it can happen that you say, okay, we have a nice priming, but we think it can be better. Or we think we can have the same effect, but with a more simple protocol. All reasons to change a priming. So then I will say a little bit about the trends that we see in priming. When you look at new crops in Europe, there is now a tendency to grow potato seeds, not from tubers, but from seed. We call that true potato seed. The seed is very small. It has primary dormancy and it has secondary dormancy. So there are quite some challenges before you can really plant potato seeds. In Asia, well, I already saw several questions on gourds, on loofah, and on papaya. So it appears there is really an interest in these crops. In North America, there is an interest in hemp and guayule. Guayule is a rubber substitution crop. And then what we also see is that organic priming is becoming more and more interesting. In Europe and North America, we saw in 21 an increase of 3%, which is not a lot. And if you look at the total global agricultural area, only 1.6% is being used for organics. But if you look in Europe, there are 20 countries that already devote 10% or more of their surface to organic. So there is really something happening there. Also in Brazil and Japan, you see it, but it's growing very slowly. And then the concluding remarks. Priming is well established in the more developed countries. In Western Europe, North America, Japan, and in Asia, there is still a lot to gain. The crops that are being primed usually depend on the related problems with the species, on the regional preferences, and on the market demands. And occasionally, a new species is added. It can take quite a while before you have a priming protocol that works properly. And you also need to monitor the results of your commercial priming. And finally, in organic priming is a trend in certain regions, but still with a low share. that is the end of my presentation. So I'm ready to answer your questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that very, very interesting presentation, Dr. Henry. I think the flow from Irfan coming to you was very nice, right? To highlight the importance, the issues with priming. Before we go on to the Q&A, just as we did before, to test the attentiveness of the audience, can we go on to the poll to see whether the audience are getting the correct answers? Kuna?
Yes. Can I request Henry to... Henry, can you stop sharing the screen, please?
I just did.
Ah, great, great. Right. So I'll run the poll now. Again, there are 2 questions. And we request participants to select your answer and submit the poll. We saw a few submitting, 13, 14. Oh, very fast. Now we got almost 30 participants submitting already. And let us give a few more seconds for participants to join, Dr. Uma.
Yeah, sure.
So as of now, let us, we have around 80 responders submitting the poll. I think they are pretty familiar with the function now because they did it faster than the first one. So let us give 10 more seconds. All participants, please be hurry to submit your answer. Currently, we got 102 responders in the poll now. So I'm counting 5 seconds and we will end the poll. So be hurry, everyone. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. So I'm ending the poll now and let us share the results.
Okay, Henry, would you like to comment on the results?
Yes, of course. Well, the first question, you can see that people did not only watch my presentation well, but also the presentation of Dr. Irfan, because 92% answered it right. The main reason for priming seed is to get a fast and synchronous germination. And that, of course, results in a higher stand of usable transplant and in a higher yield. The second question was a bit more difficult about the effect of grafting of a tomato plant. Indeed, it should result in a higher yield. That is principally the answer because that is the final result. Part of it is that it increases the resistance against soil pathogens, but it also gives you a better growth of your grafted plant. So the result that I was looking for is result in higher yield.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I think that questions were very good questions because it relates to the take-home message of this webinar, you know, on the importance of priming. And I think the audience captured that very well. There are some questions for you, Dr. Henry. Let me see. How can we develop protocol when the maturity of seed lot are quite different?
Oh, that is a difficult question. I would say that if you want to prime a seed lot, then it should be fully mature. If it's not completely matured, then during the priming, maturation can continue. And that is something that's one very nice example of that is the priming of celery. Celery is an umbellifer crop. And in harvesting the seeds, you have very ripe seeds and very unripe seeds. And principally, celery is the only crop of which I know that you have a growth of the embryo during priming. For all the other crops, the embryo is fully grown and you only have a physiological improvement of the embryo, but in celery, the embryo really grows. Apparently, there is not a better way to harvest the seed. So the seed that we get contains all these variations in ripeness. And that means that we have to apply a very, very strong priming. So where you usually have a shelf life of primed seeds for 1 or 2 years, for celery, it is only 3 months. So the priming is that harsh that after priming, it goes back to the customer and principally they have to sow it as soon as possible. So it is possible if you have seeds of different ripeness to prime it. But of course, if you have an unripe lot and a ripe lot, the ripe lot probably needs a shorter priming than the unripe lot. So principally, I would say if you want to do priming, make sure that your lot, your seed quality of your original lot is as optimal as possible.
Right. I think that's a good message. Start with material that are uniform as possible and with high quality. There are many questions actually relating to a particular type of seed. For example, there's this question on pepper, right? Pepper seeds, what would be the best priming agent? Earlier, we also saw for bitter gourd, papaya. So perhaps you want to comment on this specific seeds. What sort of priming agents would be useful?
Well, principally, the priming agent we always use is water. It's more about the technology. How do you make sure that the seed does not absorb more water than needed? And then, of course, you can apply the water in the shape of PEG, polyethylene glycol. For pepper, that is not the most optimal way. So for pepper, you can, what we would say, apply a drum priming or a solid matrix priming, where there is enough oxygen for the seeds, and you can adjust the amount of water as needed.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. I think you also had a very nice slide on, establishing the protocols and what do you need to take into consideration before we even go into the priming agent, right? So perhaps the audience can relook at that slide when they get it from APSA. Okay, let me see what else. Can you share how do you do priming for onion seeds?
Yeah, well, this is an interesting question because we are a commercial company and we do not tell how we do it. We can prime onion seeds, but like I said, priming is a matter of adding water and maybe some other compounds. The way you do it depends, well, I would say in the case of onion, mainly on the volume. So you don't want to prime onion seed in osmotic solution unless it is for research purposes. But if you have 100 or 200 kilos of onion seed and you need to prime it, then an osmotic solution is not the first choice. Then you would refer to a drum priming or a solid matrix priming.
Okay, I hope the audience are actually picking up the vibes from what you are actually explaining. A lot of the answers, I think, were already in the slide, as in there is no specific recipe for or rather a general recipe that works for all crops. It has to be a specific recipe that has to be optimized. And I think, Dr. Henry, you elaborated that very well, but by showing the number of experiments, the number of years required to actually perfect the technique, right? So, yeah. There are lots of questions actually asking what type of priming for what crop. So I'm going to avoid that because I think we have deliberated on that quite well. Let's look at this question on storage. I think this is again another challenge that we discussed with Dr. Irfan earlier. But specific question that is being asked is what should be the temperature for storage after priming?
Yeah, that's partly depends on the species. Like I told you, for celery, we have a very strong priming and we prefer to store that at 5 degrees. For most other crops, we use a storage temperature of 15 degrees. And with 15 degrees, you can store the seeds for 1.5 years. And like Dr. Irfan also mentioned, it's not only the temperature, you have to dry the seeds before you put them at the low temperature. And if possible, if you can get rid of your oxygen, that can also improve the shelf life of seeds.
Okay. One more question. Can prime seed actually germinate at lower temperature at the farmer's field?
Principally, yes. The suboptimal temperature, the lower temperature is something where primed seeds respond better to than unprimed seeds.
Okay. Okay, what is the most important factor of concern if I want to develop the protocol for seed priming?
There's not one concern, I would say. And like I said, you have to go out from the species, the type of seed that you have. And of course, when you do priming, the moisture level is very important. Because if it's too high, then you have the risk of germination during priming. If it's too low, then the priming effect will be much less. So moisture is the most important concern.
Right, thank you. I think the audiences actually should look at both the presentation together to actually get a full picture of what's going on, right? Because I think, Dr. Henry, you're also going back to the principles of how much moisture should we allow the seeds to imbibe, right? And when do you actually stop the imbibition process? And this will differ based on the seed type. Now, this is one question from me because we still have some time. What do you do with seeds that have a hard seed coat which does not imbibe water? How will priming be effective in this kind of seeds?
Yeah, for that kind of seeds, you need to usually apply a mechanical stress. So you can scarify the seeds, and you can do it mechanically, but you can also do it using sulfuric acid. The only problem of sulfuric acid is that it's not nice to work with. Whereas for a mechanical scarification, it's much less dangerous for the people who do it.
Okay, multiple questions on pepper. I think there's a tremendous interest on pepper seeds. However, I'm going to call it a day with the questions because I think we don't want to specifically answer those questions. Now, I think that's about the last question for you, right? So I would like to take this opportunity to thank you very much, Dr. Henry, for your sharing session. And I'm very sure that it has been very helpful and beneficial for the audience, right? So
Thank you.
I would like to thank both the speakers, actually, Dr. Irfan and also Dr. Henry, right? So it's about time for us to move on to the next part of the program, which is the closing of the event, right? So to do the closing, I would like to call upon Dr. Jagdish, right? He will then summarize the session and also do the closing. Dr. Jagdish has been with APSA Seed Technology Committee since 2020. He currently is the head QA and ISTA accredited seed laboratory of the Indo-American Hybrid Seeds India. He has been with the company since 1999. Now, prior to that, Dr. Jagdish was a professor at Department of Seed Technology at the University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore. He's also a member of the ISTA Vigor Committee and group leader for conducting RE tests in tomato and sweet pepper during 2016 to 2018. And he also continued work doing research on 2019 to 2021. Now, Dr. Jagdish successfully organized many ISTA workshops since 2008 until 2019. So with that, may I invite Dr. Jagdish to do the closing. Dr. Jagdish, please.
Thank you, Dr. Uma, for your interesting introduction. So we had a very excellent moderation by Dr. Uma for the two speakers. And we had excellent speakers in the form of Dr. Irfan Afzal, who is talked on modern seed priming. He stressed on high quality seeds to growers, especially maintaining high viability and vigorous seedlings, uniformity in higher yields. So his importance on the high seed quality has been influenced on the global production and also the food security. So we have 500 million farmers, and this approach is very commendable. The different seed primings also dealt by Dr. Irfan were illustrated, including the hydration process, and priming history was elaborated, and its abiotic stress such as water and salinity stress, and using of salicylic acid in his various experiments. And he also stressed on the laboratory research, industrial research, and also the farmers level implementation. So the seed priming agents causing germination enhancement was elaborately dealt. So there are challenges like seed longevity, like lower, as the two speakers elaborated and emphasized that low RH and anaerobic condition practices in primary seed is of vital importance. And also Irfan is very positive that to introduce priming in Asia and other developing countries, the low cost and effective priming is top of the day. And these priming agents for climatic change is also very important, whereas there are sudden change in the temperature in both in temperate and tropical and also other countries where it is experiencing. So in the future line of study, we have to work on this seed priming for these important stress areas. So coming to the second speaker, Mr. Henry Bruggink, he has working in Incotec in Europe. He has made an excellent presentation on the practical and commercial use of the seed priming. So most interested aspect is on the practical development and in-depth study on achieving the uniformity of germination and improved germination under stressful conditions like salt tolerance, temperature variations, and also oxidative processes. And another important is the many participants referred is the dormancy relief and how to prevent dormancy. So the seedlings less sensitive to stress was also emphasized by Henry. The advantages of seed priming also covered and how it improves deteriorated quality, which is very important in this commercial seed companies. The regional difference in species in different continents was also listed, and how to develop the priming protocol with the rootstock of tomato, where you have this to get the ultimate aim is to get more yield with reference to tomato. So there is a big market in the organic priming of 125 billion euros is preferred in Japan, and also now a lot of work on organic priming is taking up in India also. So he also worked on this new release like TPS in potato and also loofah, and many questions were asked on the papaya and bitter gourd dormancy breaking. And in hemp also there is a lot of work in the United States and Brazil. And there is a growing demand for organic in Brazil as well as in Japan. So these are the major contributions. So this over 180 participants of the today's webinar might have taken well note of this two excellent lectures. And I hope there will be many more inquiries, and there will be more use of seed priming in the both in the research as well as in the commercial application of primed seed for the benefit of the farmers at large. I thank the APSA Seed Technology Committee for organizing the major topic on seed priming as a webinar topic, so which has given rise to many answers with these two speakers. I will hand over to Kuna for the further proceedings.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chakadish. So a very short announcement for everyone for the next webinar. So the next webinar will be on seed drying. So seed drying, this session 2 webinar of seed technology will be held on July 25th. Please note that the time is changed to 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Bangkok time, because we will have speakers from the US. So we would like to shift the time a little bit to 2 hours in advance. And participants today who answer the post-webinar survey is really a short survey. If you answer the post survey, you will be receiving the certificate of attendance. So right after this webinar, we'll share with you an email of the link of the post survey. And the instruction to get presentations and video recordings will also be shared in the same email. So for more information, also please contact our staff, Bobby, at comsac@apsaseed.org. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Have a good day to you all. Bye.